All right, good afternoon or good morning if you're on the West Coast. Thank you for joining us today. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the Make Music Day 2025 school-based project. Just a little bit of introduction on what this project is. This is our second year with the NFHS and our partners of working with Make Music Day. Those of you who don't know, Make Music Day is June 21st of 2025. It is always June 21st because that is the summer solstice. And we choose that day to fill the longest day of the year with music. Today, we're excited because we have a performance window, and we'll go through all those details, and they'll be on the website later, about how to participate with Make Music Day this year, and our amazing composer, Brian Balmages, who I'll introduce here in a moment. This project started 2 years ago. This is our second year, and it is a critical impact year for us. And thus the name of the piece, and you'll see just how incredible this is going to be here in a moment. The NFHS is the one of the anchor organizations, along with Alfred Music, Make Music, the NAMM Foundation, and then of course the Make Music Alliance. We work on the administrative side of things and how we do things throughout the 20,000 high schools in the United States. And we are very happy to bring this wonderful opportunity to all the middle and high school students around the United States who choose to participate. Selfish plug before I introduce Brian. If you are interested and enjoy this webinar as well as the music that you're playing in your classrooms, invite all your colleagues to come join the project. There's no cost, it's easy to do, and I think your students will really enjoy it. Throughout the webinar, Brian will be going through all of the piece and different components that are built into how he composed it and what's the best rehearsal techniques and other issues in there. If you have questions that are pertinent to the sections he's talking about, please go ahead and ask those in the chat, and Jen will make sure that we see those as they come through. If you have a question overarching about the composition or to Brian specifically, feel free to save those for the end, but also use the chat feature as well, the Q&A feature in the webinar. All right, it is now my distinct pleasure to welcome Brian Balmages to the webinar. He's a man that needs no introduction, so I will let him do all of his introduction and then dive us deep into critical impact. Brian.
Well, thank you. Hey, everybody. It is great to be here, whether you are here joining us live. I know there's a whole slew of people that are going to be watching this later because of school events and things like that. But I am thrilled to be here and to be sharing this project with so many people. To date, we're approaching 1,000 schools that are involved in this, and we still have a long way to go. So it's pretty exciting for me that we collectively get a chance to really show the world how we feel about music, how we feel about music in our schools and in our communities, and just making this joint statement of the power of the arts. And so I'm really excited to be here and doing this. What I wanted to do today was to give you insight into the piece itself, but I also really wanted this to be almost like a rehearsal video to share with you the things that I would be thinking about as I was conducting this and going through it stylistically, balance concerns, other different things. And so I thought we would be able to do all of that together. I'm going to share my score with you so that you can kind of see what I'm talking about. And then I'll also have audio going at the same time. And so that'll give us a great opportunity to just dive into this whole thing. So obviously, here we are with the title Critical Impact. And the first thing I want to mention is why the title Critical Impact. So when I wrote this, there were two things that I was trying to really capture, and both of these are integral in the way that we perform the piece. Number one, this idea of impact, right? The technical, something huge hitting something else, right? This massive earthquake of impact. And so from that standpoint, there's a huge bombastic, energetic, stylistic element to this, right? And that's why you can see this allegro energico to start the whole piece off. And so the other element, which I'm really, really, again, excited about, is this idea of the critical impact that our arts programs make in our communities. I I make no hesitation about talking to people about the state of the world today. And no matter who you are, no matter where you are, most people agree that there's a lot of things in the world that sometimes always feel broken or always feel ugly or always feel challenging. And whether that is you currently, whether that was you in the past, or whether you're worried about things in the future, no matter what, music is an incredible way to bring us together and the impact that it makes in our communities, right? I'm thinking about this as a piece that not only champions music in our schools, but that really unites communities. It unites students, it unites teachers, it unites the schoolhouse and the community itself. So I think we should dive right on in here and get into the logistics of everything. All right. And so the first thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to just kind of play this piece through. And again, if you have questions as we go, please feel free to type them in. I have no issues answering questions as they come. So the very beginning thing that I want to kind of generate your attention toward is the stylistic thing. You will notice, and this is true of a lot of my pieces, that I do not tend to over articulate these pieces, but the style is still implied. So a lot of band kids would be very likely to start going dee da 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 dee. I draw their attention to the style marking, allegro energico, right? Or energico, depending on what you're doing. And that to me implies a more marcato, lighter style. D, da, da, D, da, da, D. Notice my quarter notes are long, my eighth notes are short. String players, all right? I encourage you, if you can, to be off the string. That is ideal. Off the string would be perfect. If you are a little bit, if that's not quite where you are, then my next thing was, can you do more of a stop string? Right? Can you stop it a little bit? And if that's a little bit challenging, then I would encourage you to really articulate dot 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 instead of dot 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 dot, so that we do not want a regular détaché stroke. Okay, so let's start from the very beginning of this, and I'll kind of guide you through, probably almost by rehearsal number. Okay, here we go. You hear that style. Good. Now I want to stop right here at 9. I'm going to probably stop at almost every rehearsal number. Make sure that as we're getting into 9, all right, there's a couple things that happen that are really integral. First of all, obviously, string players, there's that crescendo, but it really is that arrival at 9 that's the peak. And the reason I mentioned the arrival at 9 is because if you look at the low strings, if you look at the low brass, the low reeds, they have the accented dot 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 dot, right? Because the entire piece is trying to land at measure 9, we still want direction to the phrase there. So, bum, bum, right? Make sure that that is a sentence and there's an exclamation point at the end of it. Da, da, dum, bum, so that it's going somewhere. Okay, good. Let's keep going. Same thing with the eighth notes. You see these? Nice and short. Good. I wanted to just kind of get a little bit of a longer section right there. So let's talk about a few things if we can. All right. I'm going right back to this trumpet entrance. All right. So first of all, trumpets, listen to this. Dee, da, da, da. Now, first of all, there are no accents there, are they? There are no staccatos there. But again, you've got to look at the stylistic element of the piece. It's called critical impact, and that opening allegro, that energetic allegro, the sound that we're trying to informs the articulation that we're going to be using. So really, dim, bum, ba, bum, right? And then making sure that woodwinds, upper woodwinds, and flute and oboe, da da dee, da da dee, da da dee, so that we have the shorter eighth note, longer quarter note, and all these notes are very well articulated. The other element that we want to make sure is that we're hearing this horn line. Dom, bum, bum, bee. And then for the bands that are doing this, that's also taken care of in the euphonium. So make sure that doesn't sound, and I'm not using this for pitch, make sure it doesn't feel flat, not sound flat, but feel flat. So we don't want to hear do, do, do. It's an impact. Bum, 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 bum. right? So really capturing that stylistic element right there. Okay, good, good, good. And then percussion, really finding your way with the rest of the ensemble, whether it's a full orchestra, whether it's band or band plus strings, making sure that you and these little orchestral hits that dut, 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 in those cases, I think you can be just right at the same level as the rest of the melodic players right there. Sometimes we want percussion to be slightly less. Sometimes we want the percussion to be slightly more, depending on where it is. But here you're sitting almost equal with them because these are these orchestral hits. Okay, great. And then we get to 17. All right, couple things. Obviously, the accents become very key in the snare drum part. Finding that really making sure that becomes the motor. That becomes the motor of the entire thing. And then violas, cello. Make sure that you, and marimba, of course, make sure that you are locking into the motor, right? And that snare drum is the motor. So we want to really make sure that we are listening carefully for that, those of you that have that. And then woodwinds and brass, trumpets, really, and clarinets, make sure you're really observing that diminuendo. I did not put an ending dynamic there because it depends on what the volume is of everybody else. I always tell people the mezzo forte is a great guide. Forte is a great guide, but that's all it is. It's a guide. There are 30 different versions of forte. So wherever the ensemble is, you need to fade into that ensemble sound. All right. Saxophones. This is going to be a big thing right here at measure 20. I guarantee you, most saxophones are going to want to play that too long. Da, 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 dee, dee, dee. All these wonderfully classically trained saxophonists with a beautiful sound, but it needs to be shorter. Bup, 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 bup. Okay, so really make sure that you are listening and trying to play into the sound of the snare drum. Obviously, not that short, but with a nice separation and articulation. If saxophones are playing this with strings and those strings are playing off the string, that's a great option for you to focus on and try to emulate. Okay, great. Let's jump into, I believe we're at 25. Good. So a couple things, two things that I want to point out. Let's move backward for a moment, okay? Let's look right here at 25, all right? So 25, the melodic line starts in trumpet 2, not trumpet 1, but trumpet 2, all right? And of course, horn and tenor have that as well. Now, moving on, then trumpet 1, you guys come in with the melody. Okay, so viola, of course, you have the melody there as well. This dialogue between trumpet 2, clarinet 2, trumpet 1, clarinet 1, tenor, horn, viola. These are equal parts. A lot of times people feel like, oh, I'm on the second part. It's not as important as the first part. That is never the case with anything that I write. They are equal parts. And this is a great example. You have two contrasting melodic ideas that are having a conversation. They're speaking to each other, answering each other. So as one speaks, the other should be listening and then responding with the same energy. We don't want to hear bum 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 bum. You've got to match the intensity of each other, right? This becomes tricky for viola because in the string section, no one else has that other theme. So violas, you're the hero there, right? You are the hero. If you have a chance and you're playing in a full orchestra setting or plus band, then you can react to the wind players that you're hearing. But violas really dig in there, right? We want to hear a lot of sound from you all. That is a critical part. No pun intended, but it's kind of fun. We're going to go with it. Okay. Excellent. And then the other thing I want to draw your attention to, percussion. You are helping us finish this phrase into 32. Make sure all of the wind players that we don't go at 31, duh, bup, up. You cannot, you gotta, don't breathe there. Don't breathe there. Make sure you have enough air to get into the duh, bup, up. All right. So no breath going into 32. And I'll back up just a tiny little bit so you can hear that. But no break. Percussion, you lead us into the downbeat of 32, and then off we go. Check it out. Notice okay, hold on. One thing I want to draw your attention to. Notice, by the way, all right, we just finished everybody at forte, bop, bop, but immediately at 32, even though we finish at forte, the group that takes over is back down one dynamic level. Make a note of that. So 32, we do not want to be this huge sound, with the exception of these hits that are happening. Sound, right? So these are these impact moments, right? This impact that these things are having within the context of the music. Let me go back one more time so you can hear that dynamic change. See that? Not too much there. Now, let's draw one more tension here. So notice when we get to 37, okay? Low strings, cello, bass, low brass, and low reeds. Look at 37. These orchestral hits are different. We are now back a dynamic level at mezzo forte, right? Backing it off just a little bit. So the impact is still there, but now it's more subtle. And again, as I was writing, I was thinking about the fact that sometimes these impacts that we have, these critical impacts that we make, sometimes they are right there for the world to see, right? It's a pep band. It's doing all these different things. Other times, it's much more subtle. It's much more subtle. It might be in a concert setting where our parents are just sitting and watching, and it just makes them feel a certain way, right? It might be this idea of the impact of the way kids feel before school or after school when they're in the band, orchestra, choir room, hanging out because they feel where they belong. And so these impacts vary in their depth. And so that's why it's important in these impact statements that we're really paying attention to the volume that I'm trying to achieve. Okay? Good. Backing up just a tiny bit. And what I want you to notice, the entire ensemble has this beautiful arrival into measure 40. All right. At measure 40, stylistically, we now change. I can guarantee you that your tempo is going to want to slow down. This is where practicing with something like Make Music Cloud is absolutely helpful, because you can turn a metronome on, you're playing along with the recording, and when you get to 40, you're going to feel yourself want to slow down because the notes are longer, they're legato, it's softer. And so having that metronome on, all right, and the way I would practice this, I would start off with playing it in Make Music Cloud with the metronome and getting used to doing that. Then I would take the metronome off, right? So that you're still playing with the music, but taking that metronome off. So practicing it two different ways. Then test yourself. Can I play it with just the metronome? Can I play it without a metronome and without the music and just see if I can maintain tempo? There's a lot of different ways to practice this, but the key is going into 40, beautiful dynamic change. We become lyrical, and there are exceptions to that lyrical part. And I will mention that is we go for a walk. Actually, I'll get there in a minute. So the beautiful dynamic change, lyrical, keeping tempo, but then notice how the overall feeling changes and it becomes much more, I guess it's much more of an embrace, right? Almost like a musical hug. All right, great. Let's listen to that change. Here we are. Now, much lighter here. But deep bum bum. Look at the swells here. Coming back down, coming back down. Now growing. Now, I want to draw your attention to one thing here. Let's look at what just happened. So right here, yes, we are mezzo piano. Everything is fine. Then we have this crescendo to mezzo forte, back to mezzo piano. Remember, these are a guide. These are guides for what we're trying to do. But I want to draw your attention to the fact that then we have another swell going to measure 46, which is mezzo forte. But what is now missing is the diminuendo. Now, in my mind, there is still a very subtle relaxing, okay, of the dynamic. Not a lot, not enough to justify there being a diminuendo there. But even if you listen to when I was conducting this recording, you will hear the group just phrasing ever so slightly going into 48, where their 48 just has a little bit less. Okay. And then the crescendo is going to now to forte, but then back to mezzo piano, which is giving us this room to grow. Right. And we have a lot of growing that is about to happen here. And by the way, when we do get here, Okay, despite all the lyrical nature of everything around us, at 52, we begin that shift back to the lighter, more separated element right there. Okay, good. So let's find all of that and put it all together. Here we go. Hear that? Now, do you hear that? We're back to this lighter style. Now here we go. Big sound. Okay, so a couple things let's talk about right here. First of all, I love this section. I really, really do. When we get to 56, right? The first thing is we have this bum 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 bum. It's almost like Mars from the planets, right? This big, powerful unison bum bum statement, right? So woodwinds big there, right? Big sound, strings, big sound, percussion, big sound, and timpani. This is almost like a timpani solo right here, right? Snare drum obviously is at the same dynamic level, but the snare drum should defer to the sound of the timpani, so it's not too big snare drum. And bass drum, same thing. You're playing a duet with timpani, so as timpani crescendos, bass drum, you're going to crescendo as well. Suspended cymbal, you're listening to that crescendo and you are enhancing that sound. Now, we get right here, okay, measure 58, brass players, right? We have got to make sure there is a great balance between all of these sections, including the tenor and the bari and the bass clarinet bassoon, right? And so we're really looking for the making sure that we are matching articulation, making sure that we are matching in terms of balance and energy and note length, and obviously intonation, right? Dee, dee, da, da. And then when we have the tuba, bass, clarinet, and bass, you're answering here as well. Don't just go boom, 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 boom. Again, there's no phrase there. Bum, bum, ba, bum, 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 bum. So you can hear how there's an arrival point at the whole note, right? Those are so important. So find those arrival points, and you will find, especially as a low reed player, a low string player, a low brass player, you will start to musically enjoy all the music that you are playing more when you are thinking about every part that you have, even if it's several whole notes in a row, in the context of the other phrases that are happening in the group. So really be aware of that, okay? So we're going to listen to all this energy right here. And then at 66, same thing, folks. It's getting softer. We already know what's going to happen with tempo. Use Make Music Cloud to help you not have that happen. So you can maintain that tempo, maintain that energy, and that excitement. It's just a quieter excitement, right? And when we get to 66, I want you to also be aware of the fact that there's two different intentionally written dynamics here. We've got the line, right? Which the line is actually happening in the flute and the oboe and the clarinet. Tenor, horn, you have it as well. And that's it, right? Bells, you have it as well, right? Don't never want to leave out the bell part. And so those become the focus. Everything else should be just slightly underneath of that, right? Again, remember, if you can get down to that softer dynamic at 66, that gives you the room to grow, which is what we're after. Okay, great. Let's go back to this fanfare idea and put it all together. And by the way, I should mention, right? I love the passing line in the horn and tenor right there at 62. Dee, 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 right? Bum, bum, bum. Really bring out that suspension. It's a really powerful, incredible line. Be the hero right there. That's a heroic line right there. Here it is. Now, coming down. Keeping that tempo. Good. I want to take a moment and talk about violins, right? And actually, we'll talk about the strings entirely for a moment. So let's look at 66. There's three things going on here, right? We have this impact element. The impact element would be the cello, the bass, that bum 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 bum. Now, listen to what I'm doing. Bum 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 bum. And low brass, you have that. Low reeds, you have that as well. Right? So that's one element. The next element is what I call the engine, the motor. And this is second violin and viola. So again, making sure that you are not only in perfect time, but that you are matching each other. Seconds and violas, you should be establishing eye contact with each other so that you're looking at your bows. Are our bows moving at the same speed? Are we having the same contact point in the bow? Are we playing the same note length, right? Or our articulations, are we grabbing the string together, right? All those things, and make sure that you are locked in. Make sure you are visually looking at each other and playing together, all right? In the case of the winds, you're listening for the motor and the marimba and that snare drum. Okay, great. So then as that goes along, then we've got this thing in violin one. All right. And violin one, you're looking at this thinking like, I've got a bunch of whole notes. And these are, again, we're going to use the word critical. Okay. This is one of my favorite parts, actually. And it's this idea that amidst all these moving pieces, we have this one soaring, not stagnant in terms of energy, but this stationary, sustained line that just continues to grow and hover over everything. And so strings, when you're playing this violin one, okay, there is going to start to be a natural crescendo a little bit with the entire ensemble. It's going to happen, and musically that's perfectly appropriate. But strings, you need to make sure, all right? The motor, obviously, we need to keep going, but first violins, do not think that this is not important at all. Notice, look at the entire score. No one else has this. It is not anywhere else. And so this idea of these soaring lyrical lines, it's all you. It's only you. So you want to make sure that you're constantly, those of you using vibrato, use a lot of vibrato as it starts to grow, as you start to move into the upper register, right? Obviously, in these sections here, if you've got third position, take it, go, all right? That's what we want. But especially this crescendo right here, that's where the vibrato really comes into play. And make sure all of you folks going into 74, ba-bum, 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 right? So we really get into that. All right, let's check it out and listen to that. You hear that violin line? Here's the vibrato. Building. There's those accent points there again. Good. So timpani right there. Okay. Timpani, make sure, again, time. Make Music Cloud will help with that. But make sure that you are subdividing that entire time. If you're not thinking that way, you're going to rush it. Right? So make sure that you're really listening to it, because we really want to hear. If you are having the opportunity, right? If you are one of those few that have the opportunity to play this in a full orchestra, right? This is a great time where, as a timpani player, I am locked in on the strings, on the upper strings. Absolutely locked in. If you're playing this in band alone, I am listening for clarinet. Because clarinets are also moving on beat 2 and 4. Okay, so you're trying to find that lock in. All right, the other thing that's going to really help you is the marimba part. Right, to truly find that, make sure that you can hear that marimba part. And this would be a great sectional time, right? Great sectional time between snare drum, bass drum, and timpani. So that we can make sure that it sounds like one single player playing all those different instruments. All right, great. Let's take this to the end. Lots of color with the bells here. Now check it out. There it is. Big here moment. Now, really quickly, before we go on here, we need to make sure that we are taking air. We've got to make sure we're taking air, because when we get to 82, right, what we don't want to hear is duh, 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 right? We've got to play at least two measure phrases. Dee-da-da-dum, ba-da-da-da, dee-dum, right? If you need to take a breath, at least make it two measure phrases, right? Now, violins, altos, oboe, and flute. You're going to be tempted to play. If you look at this, it's four measures of the same thing. The worst thing that we could do is play it the same way for four measures. Da 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 da. Right? I'll fall asleep listening to my own music if we do that. Right? So that means if it's something that's repeated or repetitive, I was going to say both words and I made up a new word. If it's something that is being repeated almost anywhere in music, that music has to be going somewhere or coming from somewhere. In this case, we're headed toward the end, so it's going somewhere. So think about it this way. Dee-dum ba-dum, dee-dum ba-dim, dee-dum ba-dum, ba-dum ba-dum. So every one of those is just a little bit more than the previous one. And that gives it direction, it gives it energy, right? It gives it focus, and that's what we're looking for. And so you'll hear that as these chords are happening, and we want to make sure we're tuning these chords, right? Because there's some different harmonic things going on here. Make sure you are tuning those chords, especially in the winds, right? Especially in the winds. So make sure you're listening very, very carefully. Strings, yes, you can tune too. I highly recommend it. So let's go back and catch this. Here we go. Here. Now we're building. Vito. Growing. Hold it, and. Okay, so a couple things there. Let's talk about it, right? First of all, at 86, subito mezzo piano, right? So clarinets, I would absolutely take a breath. Bassoon, I would take a breath. Low brass, I would take a breath there, right? Strings, you're good, right? But we do want that subito mezzo piano. And percussion, make sure you do not overplay at 86. Everybody just got finished playing these big, huge, massive chords, and every instinct in your body is going to want to play the downbeat of 86, big and huge, and it'll be too loud. So circle that mezzo piano. Don't play too loud. And then I have really terraced this out for you. I'm giving you arrival points, right? So here, we are going into this mezzo forte, okay? Notice we're going into mezzo forte. There is one thing that is missing, and I'm going to draw your attention to it, and that is in timpani, okay? Timpani, we are missing a little crescendo in the mezzo forte here, and we're missing this crescendo as well. So add those in. See, if you're not watching this, you'll never know, and it'll be ruined. It'll be all terrible, okay? Good. So make sure that you're only getting the mezzo forte here at 88. And then the big arrival point at 90. When we get to 90, fermata people, you've got to sustain this at that volume. D, don't let it fade, and not a big, huge crescendo. Wait for the last moment. D, bum, 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 right? And then those that last measure can be just a little bit more. So again, listening to all of that in context, here we go. All right. Grow, big sound. Don't let up. Big sound. Okay. So there it is. That is critical impact, and that is what we are looking for in the rehearsal, in the energy level, all of those different things. Okay. So that is there it is, right? That's how to do it. And that was again me conducting that recording, working with players from Indianapolis Symphony and chamber orchestra members of IU Bloomington, Baylor, not Baylor, I'm sorry, Butler. Baylor's would have traveled a little too far. And so some great players there that are really showing you how best to approach this piece.
Well, this has been great, Brian. I really appreciate the time you spent on this. I'm going to open it up to anyone who's on the live webinar. If they have any questions or comments they'd like to put either in the Q&A or in the chat, feel free to go ahead and do that now. Just give me a second to do that. While we're waiting for that to happen, Brian, I just gotta say this is so engaging, and it's amazing to hear your creative perspective on how this all happened. And I knew about the piece, and I was engaged the entire time, being like, I am excited for what's about to happen next, and I hope everyone else had the same kind of feeling. So really appreciate all your time and energy you put into this.
Oh, absolutely. It's a pleasure, and for me, this is kind of what it's all about. When a piece is able to connect so many dots in life, right? We
Yep.
connect the performers to each other, we connect them to their conductors, we connect those to the community, to parents. It really is a great reminder of why we do this thing called music.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't say it any better. I don't see any questions or comments in the chat or Q&A.
Nailed it, nailed
Nailed
it.
it. So with your, oh, here's one. Let's see. Brian, was there one critical moment or teacher that had the biggest impact on your career? We're getting personal.
Oh, geez, right. There were certainly a couple moments that had been pivotal for me. And one of the one I guess in terms of moments that had impact on my career, certainly I remember being an orchestra player playing Mahler's Symphony Number 2 for the first time, and just being in that wash of sound and
Yeah.
just kind of realizing like this is what I was meant to do. There were two other moments, and one of them was really when I got to the University of Miami, and I always tell people I was a really good trumpet player when I got to University of Miami, but I wasn't a really good musician.
Hmm.
And being there and working with the director of bands at the time, Gary Green, really helped unlock this door of musicianship that I felt like was there, and all this music was in me, but I felt like it was locked and I couldn't access that door. Uh, and then once I got to Miami and studied with Green, who I just got to see yesterday, as a matter of fact, which is beautiful. I was down in Miami, but I felt like he gave me this key, this tool that enabled me to unlock that door. And from there is where all these ideas of mine flow. This idea of connection, this idea of trying to take something and emotionally make the students feel as though they are engaged in part of that experience. And then probably another transformative moment was 2 summers ago. I had the opportunity to see John Williams conducting the United States Marine Band, and was invited to a closed rehearsal that they had where I was in this room, just the barracks. It's a small room, a band room, right? And watching him rehearse them for several hours and talk about his music and the amount of detail and perfection that even at age 90 he was able to communicate. So it was pretty powerful for me. And so all those moments combined, like, those are the moments that I seek every time I conduct a group, every time I write a piece. I'm seeking those moments and I'm trying to create that pathway for someone else who might be trying to figure out those things and have just not had that experience yet, that aha moment of, oh my gosh, this is why I'm on this earth, right? To do these things. So those are a couple of moments for sure.
Yeah, and you never know when that spark is going to happen to the student,
You
right?
don't.
Like, no idea. And it could happen like you find out years later that that was the moment.
Hmm.
All right, we have one more, another technical question for you. So the whole note pattern you talked about in the string section, if we were doing this piece with our concert band, will that part just not be covered?
Well, so the answer to that is technically yes, it would not be covered, but what is covered, okay, is the those lines, those sustained lines are present elsewhere. For example, horn, tenor sax, and even clarinet too, in a lot of places. Those sustained lines really are manifested in those instruments. And so they kind of take on that role a little bit more. And so be aware of that.
Perfect.
But great question.
That's great. We can see if anyone else has any more questions who's on live. Hopefully this has been engaging and educational for everyone who's been on here. So, all right, with that, I don't see any more popping through. Jen, do you have anything you'd like to throw out there?
No, I think we're good. Just thanks everyone for joining us.
All right, thank you, everybody. Again, tell your friends and colleagues that this is available for them. It's a great program. Brian's done an amazing job with this piece of music. Let's make sure that that we have a critical impact in our middle and high schools with this music going throughout the entire country. Any questions, you can access it on the NFHS website. I'll put in the chat, which I think we can put in the post-production comment line. Share that around and have any questions there. We have access and contact information there as well. Thank you very much for joining us today, Brian. We cannot thank you enough for everything you're putting into this project and making a critical impact for so many students in the nearly 1,000 schools we have signed up today. So thank you very much. Thank you to Alfred and Make Music and Make Music Alliance, the NAM Foundation, and Make Music Cloud. So thank you very much, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Enjoy your spring, and we look forward to having you make music.
Let's show the world what we can do, people.
Absolutely.